Greetings, this is another Sprocket video, and let me ask you a question. What is better than a tank with a railgun? I'll let you think of the possible answers for a couple seconds. The answer is, just look at the damn thumbnail of the video. Jokes aside, I'm going to start with the design process that led up to that thing, and we'll start with the HGS Ballista. This main battle tank, or more realistically an experimental super weapon, has a railgun, which has 130,000 millimeters of penetration with a shell velocity of 180,000 meters a second. It's obviously pinpoint accurate, has absolutely zero shell trajectory, it's absolutely a wonder weapon, but what makes this tank with an unusual unmanned turret and hydropneumatic suspension completely unusable is the absolutely insane amount of recoil this gun generates. Of course, you tear through everything and anything. You practically have to have several platoons of tanks in front of you for the enemy to have a chance of stopping your shells, but otherwise this thing is absolutely unusable because of the just about now demonstrated recoil, and that's why it has 20 tons of counterweights. Yes, these are not meant to be armor chunks, these are actual raw counterweights. There's no other way to put it. So this unusability is the reason why I basically had to make a low power output version, which still with its 13mm gun has 37,000 millimeters of penetration, which is still more than enough for you to tear through anything and everything in every possible situation you can imagine yourself in. It still is an incredible weapon, and as you can see, the recoil is actually manageable. But as far as the whole thing goes, I mean the whole tank, alright, the gun is cool, the hull looks awesome, but I am not that happy with the unmanned turret, at least not anymore. And you know, I thought that I could do a bit better than this, and you know, this gun is overkill, and I mean, some people say that less is more in many contexts, and I think this is such a context, except what if you had less but you had more of the less? And that's how you end up with the Ballista 2, or Twin Ballista as I once referred to it in a private conversation with a friend. So, the Ballista version 2 has 8mm railguns, two of them. They both still have 10,000 millimeters of penetration, which is still plenty enough for you to absolutely annihilate everything that stands in front of you. But now it has a much better looking unmanned turret, and the damn railguns are kind of in the way. So let me take them off for a split second for you to see what the unmanned turret looks like, except now I have to remove these, and on top of that I now will make the whole thing pink for you to see it better, and I am much more happier with how this unmanned turret looks. So of course you have two sights for each gun, but they basically operate as binocular sights for the ballistic computer, so you get unparalleled precision with these, and you also have a Cyclops eye. it's like the Stora Dazzlers on the T90 tanks, except this is actually gigantic and is a huge soft spot for the tank, although that's speaking realistically. And if we are speaking realistically, this would need entire countries worth of electricity to power both railguns, and on top of that the electromagnetic effects of said railguns would destroy every electronic device in a half a kilometer radius. So yeah, this thing would be completely unpractical in real life. But let's just imagine it's having some sort of a magical insulation material embedded in it, and some magical battery technology in it that allows this thing to function properly. Now let's move closer, and you have probably already seen this setup on my 30th grade main battle tanks. You have a CITV here and basically sensors for the now redesigned Bastion APS system. So yes, I actually redesigned it for the Ballista V2, and you also have laser warning receivers and a sensor up top. You can also observe that I hid smoke grenade launchers here, which was just a convenient place to put them, and I also put them right at these sides. Except there's a slight problem with displacement. If the railguns use any of the 9 degrees of gun depression they have, this smoke grenade can't exactly fire without obstacles. So yeah, that's a slight oversight. So yeah, it happens, what can I say. Otherwise, the hull, at least compared to the other Ballista variants, actually stayed relatively the same, except I elongated it, made a completely new engine deck design with batteries here at the rear, and yeah, it's just slightly different. And as you would imagine, having a lot of fuel in a tank which has giant batteries in it is not a good idea, so quite literally every drop of fuel is stored outside of the vehicle. Like absolutely none are inside, which would make sense for something that has basically an ecological disaster waiting to happen inside it, because as you would probably know, batteries have a very tough time dealing with nature. I mean, I should have said that the other way around, but you get my point. If a car-sized battery, I mean not a battery large enough for a car, I actually mean car-sized battery that would be in such a tank. If that leaks battery acid, that's a genuine ecological disaster, and you would probably be classified as an ecological terrorist for destroying this vehicle. So yeah. Otherwise, the armor on this side is absolutely not decorative. This thing is a beast protection-wise. You need around 200-ish millimeters of penetration to go through the side. Just forget about the front, which is protected by ERA, which, as you would guess, has minimal amount of protection. It adds to the front, but still it's some protection. Same for the turret, it also has ERA, at least partially covering the turret front, and you have smaller and weaker ERA protecting the rail guns from these sides, which as you can see I have took the time to make it not that boring, I would say, but you can't really see the ribs on it, so who cares really. Otherwise, the railguns use a method I call intelligent forward-thinking design. If I wanted to make more powerful guns, I just add more segments. If I wanted to make the thing shorter, like I actually did, like these were this long before, I just needed to remove a couple segments and that's it. So yeah. It also has my largest engine I have put in any of my tanks. It has 1450 horsepower that propels this 71.5 ton beast. But I have talked enough about the general design. Now let's see how it performs. Alright, let's go. I'm going to move to a relatively safe-ish position because yes, my sides are basically indestructible, but they can still shoot through the cage armor and hit my engine and burn me to the ground. And of course that's not very comfortable. I can actually use either gun at once, and that is a choice I made specifically because aiming both of them at the same time was basically impossible. I mean, there's a roughly 2 meter wide area in between the guns, and as you would imagine, it's extremely difficult to predict where either of them can fire, and that's why I have 2 sights for either of the guns and I can choose which I'm firing. And as you can see, it has an insane rate of fire. It can fire 6 times a second, which is completely absurd, but I partially made it a spray and pray type of vehicle, and it has been compared to the Tunguska for obvious reasons. It's basically a railgun Tunguska, except it is not an AA vehicle. In fact, it only has 20 degrees of gun elevation, which is just barely enough for anything really. And yeah, my Dazzler got absolutely destroyed. It wouldn't work anymore. Let's see, which one of these guys are firing? That one. Oh, you are still alive? What? Each of these guns has 160 pieces of 8mm ammunition, which is actually much less than what you would expect because of the extreme fire rate, but it holds up pretty well, I would say. Are all of them dead? Probably. Possibly. Kinda. Maybe yes. So yes, I guess I won defense. At least as far as I'm concerned. So now let's see what it's like to fire both of the guns at the same time. Yeah, this is why I went with 8mm absolute Wunderwaffe railgun destroyer of worlds things, because originally I went with 13mm ones, just like the one on the low power output version of the Ballista one, but firing both at the same time proved to be quite challenging, especially when you still wanted to hit something afterwards, because you rocked like a damn seesaw, which is of course not ideal. So now let's try to aim, which yeah, it's kind of challenging, but I mean you can pull it off. So yes. Alright, this would be the end of the video. You can download the Ballista V2 on the official Discord server of Sprocket and try it for yourself. So yeah, I guess that's it. See you next time, whenever that might be.